Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're actually going to be taking a look at a Tenko deck. We've looked at a lot of Tenko decks in the last couple of months because Tenko has been an extremely strong force in the current meta, so that's why we've checked it out so regularly. Both in Unlimited and Rotation it has done fairly well. Tenko hasn't really changed too much at all since the addition of the new mini expansion, but we've just kind of teched in some different cards compared to some of my other decks that we've done Tenko builds on. So we are running a single Moon and Sun, obviously for the extra heal potential. March has Tea Time because it's got some extra value, and Monk Purification because it gives you a couple of decent healing spells. So we're not running too many of these. I mean, in total it's basically just 4 cards outside of a standard Tenko build. But those 4 cards really do make a difference in your matchups and help, especially in matchups against things like Puppets and Rune, where you could struggle quite a bit. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. And our first game is against Rune, and our opponent does have the new leader. Great. I've debated on buying those leaders, I just haven't really made a final decision, as of course they do cost rupees, and at the moment I am saving for the next expansion. So we start off with a reasonable hand, a 2-drop, 3-drop, and the Tenko Shrine on 5. All we really need to do is fill out our curve for turn 4, and we should have a very good hand. And we even get the turn 6 and 7 plays as well. So now we are definitely only short turn 4 going forward. And Globe isn't a bad card to get. It would have been better to get it earlier because it means I would have had a turn 1 play instead and a potential turn 4 play a little earlier. But I mean, getting it now means we've at least got something to play on turn 4 and we're not just wasting the entire turn doing nothing. Also, it gives us another card, so that gives us more potential to have a wider board of amulets, which isn't exactly a bad thing. And Princess Snow White also does a good job, as Globe on its own, if we play it, we could have potential to get a White Fang Temple, which would fill out turn 4 perfectly. Unfortunately, we're not that lucky and managed to draw our only other one copy of March Has Tea Time after we already drew another one, so now with both copies of those in our hand, that's a little disappointing. Even another Globe could have worked, because it would have filled out the curve. Although it would have locked our board down a little too much. Then I wouldn't have been able to use March Has Tea Time if I needed to. So I debated on going with March Has Tea Time this turn or next turn or where I wanted to play it, but I needed to force Tenko out. I felt if I did not force Tenko out, I was going to be in some trouble in this match, as that's basically our primary source of massive amounts of damage outside of Heavenly Knight and Summit Temple, of course. So really forcing that out was the best play I could make, especially when we're following up immediately with Gem Princess. Definitely thought it was the way to do things. So we do have the turn 8 Themis Purge, which is not bad, especially considering this is a Mysteria Burn Rune. So all we really need to do is continually heal ourselves and stop ourselves from dying. That's pretty much the only thing we can do. Which just means keeping their board clear and constantly healing up. So it's definitely going to drag us into a control matchup. Which is a little disappointing because control matchups can be tough. So the Mysterium Magic Founder, a second one, a little bit of a painful card for us to have to deal with. It's definitely going to take out this 6/6. And we don't have too many big options. I was going to go with the March Has Tea Time if I didn't draw anything else, but that White Fang Temple was just way too valuable. Especially since now I can remove the 3/3, I can actually heal more to my face and get some damage on theirs. So we're actually going to get 6 damage total on them, which is pretty perfect. It also means our White Fang will drop pretty rapidly, but we're not too worried about that. So Mysterium Magic Founder, another one, so that's number 3. So all of their damage is now being added by 3, which is insane. It's an extremely painful situation to be in. So I favour the healing, going for Monk Purification, even though I had the Summit Temple potential play there, just because I didn't want to risk my health total being too low and being killed by 2 spells. So getting any healing was going to be better and more favourable for me. So that way at least I could get myself up to 10, which puts us a little more out of range of a potential lethal. Even though most of their cards probably could have killed me at that point. So the Adorable Alchemist is not doing great now, you know. Adorable Genius, Keg the I mean, what's she really going to do to us at this point? That heal though, that's a little frustrating. And we did burn a Tenko, which was severely disappointing. So at this point, all I can really do is just kind of go face and use these as nice bodies to protect myself. I mean, the healing does a pretty nice job at protecting us, but we don't really have many choices. So the Wizard's Vase, not a problem. We are going to go into turn 10 next, which means we actually have a setup lethal with Thermos Purge and Mosaic. All we needed to do was have this Tenko survive, which looks like it'll be fairly easy. And the fact that we also had to survive, which was a risk when they started playing Oz, and I was like, oh no, where's this going? But the Mosaic Holy Water, even without it, we would have won because we could have just purged and then easily got the heal from the Gem Priestess effect, but it worked in our favour and we killed the Rune player dead. And the next matchup is against Portal. We actually do fairly well against Portal most of the time with things like Haven because it is a very solid matchup. As long as you can keep your health total up, Portal really doesn't threaten you too much. They need basically a perfect hand to really wipe you out. And unfortunately we got a pretty bad hand, which means they probably only need an average hand to beat us at this point. So starting off with an early hand, you really do want to have that curve, 2, 3, 4 drop plays. Even though you don't run any big 4 drop plays, having something to at least play on for to keep your tempo alive is pretty important. Because if you just let it go, you're going to be at risk of pretty much getting wiped out. Which is a little disappointing because it's definitely not what you want. You don't want to just be completely wiped out on the board. So there is Green Gunsmith, one of probably the strongest Portal cards right now, considering the mini expansion recently added it. It's been absolutely insane. So I do favour at least wiping that out and getting some draws because we're really lacking on consistent draw power. And we do have the chance to use Hind next turn anyway. So I didn't think this was too bad of a play overall. Did a nice job at kind of securing our board a bit. Keeping our health at a reasonable level. Although I would have loved to have dealt with this. I couldn't leave the Gunsmith up and allow it to just trade for free. Unfortunately, Hamlin did duplicate the Strikeform Golem, so it's going to be a little trouble in the future. But obviously not the worst possible case. Did decide to go for Light Hind, because we're going to proc the draw later next turn anyway. So saving on Evos is probably the better way to go. Plus it will heal itself, which will keep it out of some trouble. And we do have another Hind, which, I mean, we're not going to be able to use to its fullest yet, unless we get another Amulet, but as far as it goes right now, it's definitely not in the worst spot. So unfortunately they did start dealing some massive amounts of damage, which was a huge threat. Fortunately we did get Gem Princess, which, I mean, that's a fairly solid play. Means we are going to heal for 2, we're going to be able to remove this, and we're also going to keep out of range of these followers pretty reasonably. Meaning they'll probably have to at least 2 for 1 or use an Evo to remove our 6-3. Which of course with its heal becomes a 6-4. We also end up with the 6-6 as well on top of that. Fortunately, Loco, Little Puppeteer, is ruining our dream. But they did end up using it on the 6-6, so, I mean, that's not the worst situation. Because obviously they plan to kill this off and then go face. So now it's really just a matter of, can we survive and heal long enough? Which, thanks to March Hare's Tea Time, that should not be a big problem. Does mean we don't have a lot of burst damage to face, but at this stage we're really just going to be able to drag out the game, which for puppets isn't a good thing because they will start to run out of resources after turn 7. So once turn 8 and 9 come, they will just be wasting resources, hopefully, to deal with our Heavenly Knights. That's the plan that I'm aiming for, but we just have to wait and see where that goes. We know they have a lot of puppets, so at least half their hand is consistently puppets. Which means all we really have to do now is wipe out this board, set up a nice Heavenly Knight, and secure ourselves. It's the only reason I didn't go with something like Thermos Purge. Because we really just want a big protector. This way we won't die to most things, which is good. They would have to play an insane amount of cards with August if they wanted to actually wipe this out effectively. And kill me at the same time. Unfortunately, they are starting to ramp up those puppets because these double teddies are definitely helping them out. Luckily, a second Heavenly Knight should be enough to at least buy us another turn. And we're getting a little bit of damage in while healing ourselves up. There's the puppet room. That's a good sign. I mean, we haven't seen any kind of too bigger threats come down, which means they either don't have an Orcus or they don't have a Noah that they want to use yet. So these Heavenly Knights are definitely doing a nice job at buying us time. And they are now burning cards because of too many puppet generation, which is quite handy for us. So we're going for a little bit more healing. I also decided to take the Darkhind just to try and proc these amulets earlier so that I've at least got some form of threats on the board that have to be dealt with. 12 damage puts us reasonably out of range of dying. At least we're not going to die to most things now because 9 is usually their lethal range. So this Orcus obviously isn't going to be able to kill us, which was the plan, so making sure that that 12 health was just enough. So they did just, like I said, waste a lot of puppets now, which is great for us because the more they waste, the less they're going to have to actually hit us in the face with. Even if they hit us in the face a little bit, that's okay. I'm willing to accept my fate. So now I get a chance to go face, use our Purge, and even set up a potential Moria, which is great. Especially with that draw, the Tenko Shrine is definitely going to help us out. We go back up to 11, which again keeps us out of range quite well. This Rombi play would have been a threat if we didn't have Purge, but Purge will pretty much instantly wipe this clean again, leaving them with very few useful cards. Most of the hand will be puppets and not much else. And puppets versus Snow White, not exactly a great way to do things. There is Green Gunsmith. Of course, they are going to lose one of these instantly, and fortunately, it wasn't a bad way to go, as our Snow White is now a pretty perfect way to deal with this. And while I can't use my Hind yet, because I need 2 to really take advantage of it, I actually can play out a pretty solid board, get that little bit of healing and a little bit of damage, and put ourselves ahead quite nicely. So another Vengeful Puppeteer is going to be no problem. At this point they're just kind of wasting resources. This one was a little trickier but not super bad because, I mean, our Light Hind plus our heals, that gives us 8 total damage, which once we remove this 3-2 is more than enough to clean out this board. Which, there's no real coming back from this when you're 1 card in a puppet portal, so leading to the concede worked out really well for us. So the puppet portal match was reasonably close. Really, it just come down to, could we keep our health at a high enough total that they couldn't just storm us down in 1 turn? That was really all we could do consistently over and over again, while also presenting a board that had to be answered. So that's definitely the way that I was forced to deal with it. The Heavenly Knights definitely did a wonderful job at that. Having such a high health total really helped us soak up a lot of those puppets, and I'm really grateful that those worked out. So if you like Haven and you want to play something that does fairly well in the current meta, I recommend playing this. Of course, a lot of people are opposed to Tenko. I personally don't mind it at all, but if you did enjoy it, the decklist is in the description below. Hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.